Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. He will be here himself to introduce the film and answer questions afterwards. Where the Sidewalk ends is one of a string of bad cop films that fall under the noir sensibility. The Prowler, Road Cop, Detective Story, Private Hell 36, and On Dangerous Ground are all examples of this type of story that proliferated in the early 50s. The protagonists are policemen, often violent, that are impelled to either take the law into their own hands or switch from crime stopper to criminal. It is in this ambivalence and duality that Preminger makes the most of his directorial skills. Preminger's clever camera positioning and mise-en-scène carried enough psychological and emotional subtext in 1944's Laura that it was immediately identified as part of the noir movement when it was released in post-war France. Utilizing the same actors and the same cameraman as that earlier film, Preminger tells his story with as few cuts as possible. Notice how he sets his camera on a character entering a room and follows that character around the room in one take, zooming in and pulling out as needed for the composition. Even when a car drives onto a freight elevator, Preminger doesn't cut. He sets his camera in a place, unorthodox as it might be, where he can record the entire scene, and in its static quality, the characters have nothing to do but be with each other, raising the tension with each floor that passes. Another specialty of Preminger is the three-shot, or composition where three characters are in the frame together. This balanced aesthetic almost universally hinges on the character in the center of the shot, both emotionally and in terms of the plot. When Dana Andrews and Carl Malden are on either side of the gangster Scalise, they are at odds with one another, fighting over how the investigation should be handled. When Andrews and his partner ultimately question Gene Tierney, they are after different information, while seemingly following the same line of questioning. In this shot also, Preminger ingeniously faces Andrews toward the camera but away from the rest of the scene, so that the audience is privy to his thoughts, while he gets to keep them private. And again, it's this ambivalence about the characters that roots the film firmly in the noir category. We've seen hundreds of films where the main character gets into trouble that he has a hard time getting out of. Rarely is that trouble murder, or at the very least, manslaughter, which the character is easily guilty of. And we are told that this is not the first time that he has roughed someone up while on duty. He is an habitual abuser, and yet it is his story, and it is his eyes that we see it through, leaving us to wonder how we actually feel about this character. Complicating matters is that the person he kills is not only an unsavory character, but the husband of our main character's love interest, who has been abusive to her. And the character Andrews is trying to pin the murder on is likely an actual murderer. In the true shades of gray that define our black film, there is a sliding scale of guilt that our anti-hero seems to come up on the right side of. The duality comes in the form of reflective relationships, especially those that describe what our main character might have become. Carl Malden plays the cop that has just been promoted to lieutenant, the cop that started at the same time that Andrews did and rose steadily through the ranks. Scalise represents what he might have become if he had followed in his father's footsteps. And at one point in time, in order to get clear of his crime, Andrews actually has to become his victim, and so strolls through the night, cop and criminal, killer and corpse. All of this is underscored, quite literally, by Cyril Mockridge's music, which borrows liberally from Alfred Newman's theme to the 1931 film Street Scene. And if you go out of the theater tonight whistling, it would not be a surprise to anybody here. This popular tune became Fox's second most used piece of music after the famous Fox fanfare, also written by Newman. It can be heard in other Fox noir dramas such as I Wake Up Screaming and Cry of the City, as well as How to Marry a Millionaire, where Newman was seen on screen conducting the orchestra. Here, not only is it heard under the opening credits, but it's arranged in several different ways to accent the mood of the film at that time. The meaning of the title is never directly addressed in the film, but it is hinted at in the title sequence. It refers to the line you cross from safety to danger. Where the sidewalk ends, there are cars, trucks, and buses waiting to run you down. And the further you get from the curb, the less control you have. Enjoy the film.